Hello and welcome to episode 165 of Unsecurity Podcast. I'm Brad Nine. Joining me, as always, is Evan Francine. Good morning, Evan.
Good morning, Brad. How you doing?
Good. It was funny. We were talking. You were joining. You're like, it's so hot. I'm like, no, it's so cold. It's
Yeah, it's 75 degrees here today.
yeah. It's not that here. Although
Yeah, what's the temperature there today?
let me see. Hang on. Where is it? So as I was pulling that up, I've had it. Oh, it's 31 right now. Um,
It's balmy, man. Why are you wearing? You should be wearing
It'll
shorts.
be 7 at 8 o'clock tonight. So it'll go from 25 at 3 to 7 at 8. So that's going to be fun.
You
But
icky.
what are you going to do?
I come back. Yeah, I come back tomorrow.
Well, you're going to be cold.
Uh, I know, I
That's
know.
going to be a shock.
But it took that long to. It took that long to get my temporary resident visa,
Wow,
so
that's crazy.
I finally have it. You want to see it? I'll show it to you while we're talking. What's the show about today?
So today we're going to talk about how do we guide conversations around IT budgets and security spend. So, how do we frame cybersecurity in a way, nice, in a way that, you know, works for the business. I think that's been, we've talked about communication being an issue in the past and being a big, you know, uh, issue for getting a good program going. So how do we communicate to leadership? How do we let them know, hey, this is a necessity. We can't just ignore it or look at it as a cost center. It's more than that at this point. So
Yeah.
we,
Well, this is really common. I mean, it's common to run into, yeah, I think it goes back to what our job is, right? My job as a CISO or a VCISO is to consult the business on making good risk decisions and then implement those risk decisions. So if you follow that formula, in order for me to be a good consultant, I have to understand you. I have to diagnose issues, right? It's
yeah,
like trying to bring a car in to get worked on. The mechanic doesn't just start tearing parts out and putting new parts in. They have to diagnose first. So I think
yeah.
you have to understand the business. You have to understand the people that you're working with, and there is no one single way
Oh no,
to communicate. I think you have to communicate
yeah.
first. Just do
Well,
it.
and a good example of that, I just had this happen. One of my VCSO clients was looking at, okay, we're at the point we need to have a SOC SIM solution, and they were looking at some of the big names that are really really expensive, and I was like, no, that's not the right fit for you guys. Here's some options that I think would be
Mhm.
more appropriate for you. You can do your homework and figure it out, but it's not just about the name or the money. It's what it. Let's get what's right for the organization and framing that in a way that they're like, oh, okay. Because if I just tell them, no, don't do that. Use this. That doesn't help. It's explaining. Look, don't just go spending money. Let's find the right fit for you.
Right. And I think a lot of security people just don't even have the conversation,
Right.
in a lot of cases with the right people in the organization. I made a rule for myself, a while back that I don't want to work in a security leadership position for any organization unless I get to talk or work with or establish a relationship with the CEO.
Right. Yeah. Because
And so, in order for you to do that, then you have to get to know the CEO. Like, what motivates them? Is it money? Is it ego? Is it mission?
right.
Because my message to them is going to be along those same lines.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And getting to know them lets you understand how they speak. Right. What's their language?
Hmm.
And if you don't know that, you're never going to be successful. And and in this scenario, it
Yeah.
was like we talked. He mentioned it, and we started talking about, okay, well, so what are your needs, and listing them off, and and that's key, right? You got to listen to the business, and then you can make your recommendations. But if you're not listening and you just throw things out, you're never going to get buy-in.
Absolutely. And recognizing that, and I saw that, I don't know if you saw that post on LinkedIn, but it was a poll, and the poll was who's ultimately responsible for information security in an organization.
I didn't see it.
And
Am I going to be mad at the answer?
uh, yeah, yeah, poor John Harmon, he was down here in Mexico with me at the time when I saw it. He had to, he couldn't get away from my rant. It was an hour
Oh,
straight of like, because the options were this, the board of directors, the CEO, CIO, and CISO.
and
And those are legit options. But what really frustrated me was 50, I think 54% had chosen the CISO.
yeah,
And I'm like,
but
no, that's not who's ultimately
no,
responsible for information security. It's the top of the food chain,
the
right?
board or the
The
CEO.
CEO, if there is a board of directors, it's the board of directors. And so, even before you start like doing things for an organization, there needs to be an understanding of who's ultimately responsible, who's calling the
Yep.
shots, who does what,
Right.
establishing those responsibilities. Because sometimes I don't think the board knows, or maybe the CEO doesn't know that they're ultimately responsible.
Yeah.
So it's a different conversation. But once they sort of get that and you can embrace that, well, then okay, then the next thing is, well, okay, well, how do I fulfill that responsibility? Well, this is how you do it, right? I
Right.
need you to participate in the discussion. I don't need you to lead the discussions, but I need you to, and you can delegate, some responsibilities, but somebody needs to make the risk decisions
Right.
here, speaking for you.
Right. It's no different than we've talked about with a CFO, right? They go to the CEO or they make, they have big input on financial decisions. Same thing for security. I mean, what's the cost of being ransomed right now? $3 million payoff. That's a big hit. So, yeah, I think you're,
Totally.
you're right on. I mean, we've talked about it before. So, how do we get better at communicating with leadership and understanding? And I think we've kind of hit on it a little bit of saying, you know, listen to what they're saying, listen to how they speak, and then speak their language to help them understand that I can make those decisions, but the business may not like it. Business should be
Well, and here's
decisions.
the deal: if you're going to make that call as the CEO, let's, first of all, we need to
Right.
document that because that's a delegated responsibility that, and secondly, if you're going to empower me to make risk decisions on your behalf, then you also need to empower me with the budget to implement those
Right.
decisions.
Exactly. And that's another big miss is everybody. So many people look at security and IT as cost centers. It's a sunken cost. It's lost cost. No, it really isn't. If you
Right.
can, you know, do the right thing and spend, there will be spend, whether it's staffing or, solutions, there's going to be a spend. I'm pretty sure it's going to be less than what you would lose in a ransom attack.
Right. Well, and even that, I mean, looking for opportunities. So as a CISO or as a security consultant, I'm looking for opportunities to simplify because I know that the worst enemy of security is complexity. So if I can find areas where maybe we've got, another fundamental, right? It would be to do an asset inventory to figure out what it is we're trying to
Yeah,
secure. And just going through that process, you might find that we've got, you know, 50 software licenses that we don't need, that we're not
right.
using, or the software is redundant. We have, you know, 5 applications that all do the same thing. Why did we buy five when we can buy one? So we can be a cost center in some cases where, you know, the business may not understand the I guess the value in what we purchase, but they'll certainly recognize the value in the money that we can save and the efficiencies we can bring in. I
Yeah.
think more streamlined
Well,
processes.
and that goes back to communicating that, right? If if they don't know that you're doing these
Exactly.
things or that you can do these things, what they're how are they going to take that into consideration? They're not.
Right.
Yeah,
It's crazy how many security people, even security leaders, I think don't even have the conversation.
yeah. I think there's
You know,
just so,
they don't even talk to the
right.
CEO.
There's so many assumptions made. Well, they're just not. I'm just going to do my
Right.
thing. They're not going to listen anyway. Whatever. Or and that goes back to maybe they have tried and they didn't listen and speak the language and got shut down. Right. You go in there, start talking acronyms and technical jargon, they're going to glaze over. It's not going to mean anything to them.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be like, oh, yeah, whatever. I don't understand. Go away.
Right. Well, it can be. I mean, it can be intimidating, and honestly, I mean, some people just aren't cut out for it. Some people are just not cut out to communicate with executive management, and that's okay,
Yeah.
right? It's part of discovering your own role in the
Yeah.
game,
Very true.
and others are,
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
trying to put that square peg into a round hole, that ain't gonna
Yeah.
work.
No, that's a really good point. Be introspective too. Is that the right thing for you to be doing? Because it can be very intimidating. I mean, let's be honest. We've all been there. It's like, especially the first couple times you try to do it, it's like, oh boy, what's going to happen? But, you know,
Right.
it's amazing that, from my experience, most CEOs, they want to make the business better. So if you have an idea and a solution that's going to improve the business and you can communicate that in a way they understand, they're going to be all in on that.
Right. Absolutely, man. And what I like to figure out is, I know what motivates me, and I love what you said too about, all these assumptions. And the saying I use is, empty spaces always get filled. So if there are empty spaces in your communication, or things that aren't clear, those will get filled. They'll get filled usually with assumptions, and usually the assumptions are wrong.
Yeah.
So, you know, keep that in mind. But also, when I'm working with executive leadership, I'm really trying to figure out what motivates them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's typically one of three things: it's money, it's ego, or it's the mission of the organization. And I'm not going to be a judge and say one's better than the other. But I'm trying to figure that out, because if it's money, well, then the short talk we just had about being a cost center, how can we make the business more
Yep.
efficient, make it more money? I'll focus on that. If it's ego, how can we set ourselves apart as an
Right.
organization? And you being a leader, you have a chance to, really set a standard among your peers.
Yep.
So that would be that kind of message. And then if it's mission, it's like we need to align with the mission, tightly with the mission, and this is how our security program enables that mission, as opposed to we focus so much on protecting the mission. That's important too, but can we actually enable it?
Right.
Can we actually help this organization go faster or better? We
Yeah.
can in a lot of
Yeah.
cases.
No. And you're dead on, and that's kind of, you did a really good job explaining kind of what my tip was with understand how they speak, right? Understand
Hmm.
how do you need to talk to them to make your case successfully.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be a very different conversation. You know, I no secret you're driven by mission. It's a very different conversation to say, hey Evan, if we do this, here's how it helps us, versus, hey Evan, if we do this, it's going to save us X amount over the next 12 months. And if I came to you and said, hey, it's going to save us money, you're going to go, okay, and
No. Well, and even worse, it'd be like, yeah, this is going to make us $50 million in the next 12 months. I'd be like, okay.
right,
What I want to hear is it's going to help with, if we do this thing, we can help 50,000 more people, more organizations. That's what would motivate
right,
me. You're exactly right.
yeah, and that nuance, and you know what just popped in my head. Every CISO should take like social engineering classes, learn how to read people, because that
Yep.
makes such a difference. If you understand and can learn how people act and operate, and I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of classes, a ton of ways to do it, but just given that that's kind of in our realm anyway, it makes sense. But you know,
Yeah, social engineering is not a bad thing. I mean, look at your own family. Your daughters are pretty good social engineers, aren't they?
yeah, yeah. Oh, I didn't tell you. Our oldest, she got her license on Tuesday. I feel so old.
Oh,
So anyway,
you are old, man. Look at this face, man. I'm getting older every time I look at myself on, one of these web meetings. I'm like, oh my God, my eyes are puffier, my
right.
face is sagging more. I got more gray hairs. I don't know what's going
Yeah. Anyway, I totally derailed that. Squirrel. So yeah, I think.
But
Oh, good.
no, I mean, if you don't have these conversations, because I also get a little frustrated with our peers in this industry who, a big complaint you hear all the time is, I can't get budget. I don't have enough budget. Don't have enough budget.
Mm-hmm.
And what my first thing that pops into my head is you're probably sucking at the first part of the job, right? We consult the business to make good risk decisions, and then we implement those risk decisions. You probably suck at consulting, and that means
Mm-hmm.
communicating. That means helping the people you serve understand the purpose, the
Yeah.
reason we're doing this in the first place. It's not compliance, and if it is compliance in some organizations, that's fine. That's usually a security program I would choose not to work in
Yeah.
because it's different than security. You know what I mean?
Right.
If that's our purpose, then let me explain to you how this works and why it's so important for us and how we can set ourselves apart and be good stewards with the information that we have, the money we have, our, but that's all. You're right, man. It comes down to motivating them, and really it is social engineering. And if you
Yeah.
don't have these conversations, then don't complain about not having
Right.
budget because that's probably a big reason why you don't have
Right.
budget.
And make to be good at it, you have to put together a narrative. Don't just go in and talk. Right. Have a plan. Have your narrative
Mhm.
of why you're doing this, what the benefit is, whatever the motivation is for the other side. Make sure you have a plan going into it. Don't just you know wing it.
No, yeah, yeah, for sure. And I've been beaten up enough times too, and so I can share bad tips. Like you said, being prepared helps. Also, when they say they're going to give you 15 minutes, it oftentimes you can think five. So the message that you had planned to get across in 15 minutes, make it shorter,
Yep.
uh, and then try as hard as you can not to use opinion.
Yeah.
Use facts,
Yeah.
use quantification because that you can defend.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll pick you apart on opinion.
Yeah. And the other big thing is keep it simple. Keep it to the facts.
Oh God,
Right.
yes, please.
If I'm going to do a presentation and it pulls up with 15 bullet points on the first slide, I've lost you.
Mhm. Right.
That's
And ask open-ended questions too. Like one of my favorite questions to ask, of a CEO, once you sort of start a relationship, right? If you can, take them out to lunch or go out to lunch.
right.
Get to know them, get to know the company, get to know their history. Maybe you can do your own OSINT on them. You can certainly, find out where they went to college, what sports they played, all that kind of stuff, so that you can relate better. So that's part of your preparation. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and start those casual conversations. You don't want to dive right in and say, "Hey, let me tell you about security." Blah blah blah. No,
Let
hold
it
up.
come
Take
naturally.
your time. Get, right. Don't make this a transactional relationship. Try to make it a relational relationship.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Um,
You know,
and that'll go a long ways.
thinking back, coming up, yeah, you're right. I learned that one fairly early. Like, come in and try to make changes, you're never going to get approval. So I've always, said, look, if somebody hires me and they say, what do you want, or interviews me, or what's going to happen? Well, I'm going to learn about the business. I'm going to take the first, however long it takes, to learn what's going on, what's here, and then at that point start to formulate a plan. Because if I come in and just say, "Oh, we're throwing all this out and doing this," you lose people. I've had that happen where somebody came in to me and just changed everything. I was like, "I'm out. I don't need to deal with this."
Yeah.
And the same thing's going to happen.
When asking some of those open-ended, yeah, and asking some of those open-ended questions like in the right language, what does information security mean to you?
Mhm.
Help try to get their perspective as opposed to you trying to push your perspective on them all the time. What do you think of information security? Because, obviously that's what I'm here for. And I want you to, I want this to be a participation thing. And secondly, what do you want to know on a regular basis? What can I report to you that would help
Yeah,
you, in your role, right? I don't want to come and waste all your time because time is valuable. And and if they don't know, then I'd say, well, here, this is what I've seen work in other
right,
places. How about if I told you the current state of the security program, quantified, some number?
right.
I tell you the future state, the planned state of the security program. I tell you when we're going to get there and how much it's going to cost. So where we're at, where we're going, when we're going to get there, and how much it's going to cost. And then maybe I'll throw in a bonus like this is the current most significant thing we're doing right now
Yeah,
around risk.
yeah. That,
And I can summarize that in a single slide. I can give it to you weekly, monthly,
yep,
whatever.
yeah. No, that's a really good tip as well. And and hopefully, people listen, and this makes people's lives easier. Hearing some of learn from our mistakes. We've been beaten up plenty of times,
Mhm.
so
Yeah,
take it
I tell people I already paid the dumb tax. I don't know why you want to pay it
right.
too.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately,
Double taxation without representation,
well, and ultimately, you and I both want people to succeed, right? We don't want people burning out.
for sure.
And if you're not succeeding, you're not helping the business. You're not helping, the employees. So let's figure out how to do it right and in a manner that everybody can emulate. And let's let's do it.
Right. And on the flip side of that too, if you're doing something that's working well for you, you have a great relationship with your CEO or your board or whoever you're working with, share those tips
Oh,
with us.
absolutely.
Right? Tell us why it's working, or if it's not
Yeah.
working, you're getting your ass
Yeah.
beat.
How you got
Um,
there? Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Honestly, that's one of the things that I really have loved about this job consulting is you do get so much exposure. That's why I got in the industry is it's always changing. I started in IT and then security. It's always changing. It's always a challenge. It's not routine, repetitive like data entry stuff. I just couldn't do that. And so,
yeah. Well, that's another piece too, man. It's this job isn't built for
right,
everybody either, because some people die in that situation. Some people thrive. We thrive
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. Just getting to see all the different ways businesses operate, and you know, it, sitting this type of having this conversation with my contact at the client and helping them communicate. I've always told them, hey, look, we need to get in front of the board. We need to get in front of the C-suite, whatever is highest. I'm happy to present, or if you would prefer, I'm happy to prepare you. But let's do this the right way.
Right. Yeah. Why would we spend money on things and do it the wrong way? Why would we establish a security program and not have it be properly governed, not have it be um, quantified, not have it be based on fundamentals? Why would we piss away our time and spend all this money?
Uh, I would love to know the answer to that because we see it way too often.
But that's another good conversation to have with the CEO. I mean, if the conversation goes that way, you know, we have a great security program here in some places, but you understanding the purpose, the reason, having, I think, confidence that we are doing it
Mm-hmm.
right. And let me explain, how that works too. Um, but CEOs don't like to be talked down to. That's a big no-no too. Right? Don't use the word educate. Let me educate you. Let me teach
Right.
you. No, and I mean, in some cases, if you have a tight enough relationship with the CEO, you can go there. But and also recognizing the differences between male and female. CEOs. Male CEOs tend to be more driven by
Hmm.
ego. And so, and it's more linear. It's more um, in general, right? There's always
Right.
exceptions to the rule. Whereas a female CEO is more in general, I think more creative. Um, it's a little less uh, binary. It's a more analog,
Yeah, I can see that.
the discussions with them. I mean, and it's cool when you realize that how much security actually emulates daily life, right?
Right.
Uh, I learned so much from my own wife in the way I communicate with her because she is, a female. And so, it helps me a lot when I deal with female CEOs or female security leaders because I don't want to be ineffective. I
Right.
don't want to be condescending. I don't want to be all those things I don't want to be. And so the way I need to learn that is to be introspective and, and, and
Yeah.
respectful and figure out the right way to talk
Yeah.
about
One of the things that I found, right, going back to the educate or teach, a very effective way to get around that is to kind of flip it and say, what can I do for you to make sure you understand? What can I do? I'm not putting it on you. Tell me what I can do to help you. You know, and
it. Yeah.
that you're gonna get. Okay, great. Here's how I've learned. Some people graphs, right? Other people want numbers. But tell me how I can help you. What can I do?
Yeah.
Because
Well, ultimately, isn't that why we're here?
right. Well, and but just saying it, right? Don't assume it. Just tell
Right.
them. Just say, Evan, how can I
Yeah.
help you? What do you want to see that'll help you make the right decisions?
Hmm.
And
Yeah, and a lot of times you'll find that they don't even know how to answer that question because they've never been asked it
right, well,
before.
but that's key, right? Because now you have that opportunity to educate them without, insulting them or saying, "Hey, I'll educate you on this." It goes back to what we were saying earlier. Hey, okay, that's great. Here are the things I've seen work. Here's what I've done that works. Would that help you?
Hmm.
And that gives you that
Yeah,
opportunity
absolutely.
to help them out. So,
Yeah, and asking those open-ended questions and then listening too, because another question I like to ask is, what do you like about security and what do you dislike about security?
yeah,
And it's important for me to know that because those things that you tell me you dislike, I want to try to avoid those things, whether it be, lingo or you guys are all too geeky or whatever they say. And then the things that they do like, I want to really capitalize on that. I want to try to craft my message, to coincide with that stuff so we can reinforce the positive stuff.
yeah, absolutely. Awesome.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. And I think at the end of the day, when you do feel intimidated, realize that the CEO, no matter how CEO-y they are, they're a human being.
Right, right,
They're motivated like the rest of us.
right. Yeah, I think we're running up on time here, but one of the things that I've seen too is they don't like not knowing or feeling intimidated, and if they don't understand it, and you're not working with them, that can be a big reason why they kind of be CEO-y, as you put it.
Right. Yeah. Don't be
No,
CEO-y.
um,
Like I'm anti-CEO-y. I go the other way probably too much.
yeah, you're definitely not like any CEO I've ever worked with or worked.
No.
Um, all right, so one news article, not probably not surprising at all. Um, Massive LinkedIn phishing bot attacks feed on the job hungry off threat post. Uh, February 1st, phishing emails impersonating LinkedIn surged 232%, attempting to trick users or job seekers into giving up their credentials. And, I think this just goes back to what we've been preaching of situational awareness. We know
Mhm.
employers are hungry for employees. So, yeah,
Mhm.
there's going to be a lot more of this, you know, activity. And so they're going to take advantage of it.
Mhm.
So, just
Right.
the threat post article has a good uh, screenshots of it with kind of the spoofing and how to identify that. Um, but yeah, they're looking at Data scraping.
So targeting the great resignation, quote
Yeah.
unquote, job hunters. Yeah, data scraping bot, and it's a pretty well crafted,
Oh yeah.
phishing
It
campaign.
looks.
Even the footer with the unsubscribe link at the bottom is also spoofed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they definitely did a
You
good
know?
job with that one.
So the 232% success is not surprising because one, it is very relevant to today,
Hmm.
and that's what attackers go after because that's a better return on their
Hmm.
investment. And then two, it's very high quality, and your advice is 100% dead on, and it's situational awareness. Take your time, think things through. We're all busy as hell. I get that, but um, you know, if something seems just a little bit off,
Trust your
stop.
gut.
It probably is a little bit
Yeah.
off because it might be an
Yep.
attack.
Very cool. Good conversation. Any shout outs this week?
As always, my friend, it's always good to talk to you.
Absolutely.
I'm going to give a shout out to Ryan this week. He had a really, really, really tough week, but he's back in town. He's got his feet under him. And he maintained a really solid attitude, throughout it. And I think a lot of people might crumble under the same weight. So, shout out to him for keeping his head up and coming out the other
Yeah.
side.
I'll give a, well, I wasn't going to give him a shout out, but I'll give him a quick thank you. He and I are going to co host a webinar in March about K through 12, so that I'm excited to do that. I'm glad he was
Cool.
able to do that with me. Um, my shout out was going to be, or is, to my daughter. She kicked butt, passed her driving test. Just real proud of her. So
Nice.
she's very.
Nice. And depending on how well she drives, you might have to rescind that shout
No,
out.
yeah, no, she's been good. It was funny the first night. She's like, we're gonna get dinner out. I'm gonna go drive and get dinner. And she took the other daughter, and they went and got dinner, and they were just so excited. It was so funny, nice to watch. So shout out to her.
It's a huge point, huge milestone in their life. And your daughters, I know them. They're super responsible. You
Yeah,
did a great job with them.
yep. So, all right, with that, we'll wrap it up. This will be coming out Tuesday, so a couple days from now, and
Tuesday.
we'll talk to you again next week.
All right.